It's a great honor to be here to talk about this new scientific adventure. It's not only a scientific adventure, it's a European now scientific adventure. I'm going to talk about the Venice time machine, but as I'm talking, the Amsterdam time machine is starting, the Paris time machine is starting, the Budapest time machine was announced a couple of weeks ago, the Jerusalem time machine are preparing itself. This is now a European project. We're in competition for the FED flagship competition, which is €1 billion for the next 10 years. We're not sure to win, but it shows that something is happening, and it's something at the crossroad between science and art, between computer science and the humanities. And I'm going to try to explain, that very idea. Maybe the starting point is that there's plenty information about the past. We always think that they're only the big data of the present, and the more we think about the big data of the present, more the past seems a place where, it was before the internet. There was something which was essentially lacking any interesting element, maybe a couple of old books. And the more we think this way, the more the past as a continent is drifting away from the present. And this is extremely dangerous for political reason, for economical reason. If you have this very narrow perspective, on your own future, if you don't have the past, you cannot imagine where we're going to be in 2020, in 2100, and even in longer time scale. It's absolutely wrong. There's plenty information about the past. This is some images about the State Archive in Venice. You have 80 kilometers of document in this archive covering 1,000 years of information. And they are there with different writing styles, with different state of conservation, documenting every aspect of the city life. When we're talking about information in Venice, when you're talking, for instance, about maps, you're not talking about a couple of old maps that maybe you can print on a book. You are going to talk about forests of maps, thousands of them, that if you would be able to actually transfer in the digital world would give you some extremely precise information about not only the past, but many, many, many stages in the long history of that particular city. So what are we talking about? Not precious books. We're talking about informations about which boat is coming in the city, which boats are going out of the city, tax declaration, many tax declarations. Seems a very dull element, very important to reconstruct the city structure. They're all writing different ways. They were, in fact, kept at different places in Venice for so many times. And at the beginning of the 19th century, they were regrouped in a huge building, the State Archive of Venice. It used to be a convent, Franciscan convent, and this is where now this huge history is kept. We're talking about a building with 300 rooms. It's not accessible to the general public. It's now conserved with a handful of very passionate, I would say, keeper of the memory. But the first time I visited that particular places, and I was really in face of what could be the dump of the Google of the Middle Age. All the data is there, but we need to transform it in a way. We need to transform that in an information system. And of course, this is not an easy element, because you need to do several things to do such a thing. First, you need to digitize. So 80 kilometers, we need logistics that are, of course, beyond what you usually do when you do cultural heritage. But that's, of course, only the first step. If you have an ocean of images, you can't do anything with it if you're not capable of indexing it, of looking into this document, trying to read these ancient and writing elements, and then connecting people, places, in order to create a network. Very simple use case to start with. I want to be able to type the name of a Venetian, for instance, Battista Nani, and just find all the documents about that person. This is several weeks of work if you don't have such a tool. So imagine even if you're capable of digitizing, and this is what we've been doing. We've been installing in Venice digitization center that over the years have been performing better and better, which are now capable of reaching extremely efficient process. But in order to be capable of deciphering, not, of course, books, like printed books, but that type of writing from several centuries ago, you need new techniques. And there are more than 15 institutions now in Europe which are working collaboratively and also a bit competitively in order to find the new techniques to decipher these elements. The basic idea is pretty simple. I mean, you look at the pages and you will try to segment some elements, potentially words or group of words, and based on that element, maybe you're not capable of really transcribing them, but you can potentially detect that two words are very likely to be the same, that they are matching in a way or another. This is, for instance, something you can see on an example like this. I mean, you do some form of pre-processing, you arrive to the level of these individual words, and then you do this matching. For instance, in that particular pages, the algorithm might be able to detect that you have twice the word novice. It's not sure it's the word novice, in fact, at this stage, but it's sure that, or it has a very big likelihood that it's the same word. Then you connect all the novice which are on that particular page, and then you connect all the novice written in the same way, which are in that particular register, and potentially all the novice which are in the entire archive, provided they're written more or less in the same way. That means that when someone which is capable of reading, that is a rather simple case still, but you can trust me that there are really cases that only expert historians or archivists can read, then it's not one transcription that you do, but hundreds of thousands. And through this process, little by little, you manage to transform the archive into something which is indexable. Then you try to connect this information. This is typically a tax declaration of Battista Nani. He has been declaring maybe a bit less than what he has, we don't know, but he's also declaring many other things. I mean, that he's living in a particular place with some particular person. This is a kind of small network of his life, and we're just going to keep that information, this particular type of links he has with places and people. In Venice, you do many tax declarations, so we redo that a couple of years later, another snapshot of his life. He has moved, he's living with other persons. Again, fine, we are extracting that information. He happens to be from a noble family, and so we get his genealogy in a very easy way. One step, again, a snapshot of information. And he's also the ambassador of Venice in Paris, so every month he's sending a letter, and these letters contain information about places and people. This is the network of Battista Nani. This is, to some extent, its Facebook page, if you want. And if we do like in Facebook, if we're connecting all the dots, I mean, that all these people, all these places themselves are linked, then progressively you're creating a huge set of data, which is essentially a social network of the past. That social network now, you need to put it back in the city itself. And this is the interesting moment. Here you see the city in 2016, built in 3D. You see photographs we're taking directly to model the city in 3D. We're creating, based on these photographs, some cloud points. This cloud point of 3D model of the city of today, which we can align with some paintings. Here, a Canaletto from 1740, showing us example of elements we can use to build a model of the city in that period, which is always aligned with the 3D model of today, which we can align with a model, for instance, from the cadastre of 1808, which is telling us very precisely that on the Rialto Bridge, we have a particular shop, now 1006, where a particular person, Francesco Raspi, has some particular activity, but we found that 60 years before, maybe its grandfather had already an activity on that particular bridge. We connect the two, we put the father back in 1740, and potentially, progressively, this big puzzle, this big Sudoku of the past is solving itself. And through this process, little by little, connecting people, reconstructing places, we are capable of rebuilding a model of the past. Here, on that video, you see 1,000 years of history, which is just unfolding like a film. All the events you see, all the small bridges built, all the houses which are presently constructed, they are all based on documents. I mean, they are all based either on hypotheses that were made by scholars, published in articles and books, elements which are directly found in the archive, and what is starting now is a large negotiation. The idea that we can build a common past by progressively seeing it, discussing it, comparing the evidence, working not as the way the historians are working now, which is in a very isolated manner, but coming all together in the creation of that common patrimony. There are going to be some discussion, there are going to be some moments where people will not agree, but progressively, if we are capable of building that image of our past, it's something extremely important that may occur. That means that we are going to be able to reconstruct a common history. What I really want to see in maybe the next 10 years, or maybe in the next 20 years, is that we add that part which is really, really missing from, I would say, the internet of today, which is that dimension of the past. I want that we have Google Maps and that we are capable of having a slider and that we see history unfolding as easily as we see the present unfolding. Thank you very much.